Welcome back. I'm Nick Margerrison. Time now for something a little bit different. Each night, this time on Late Night Live, I like to have a good long chat with someone who's got a great story to tell or an important message to communicate. And tonight I'm talking to Debra Tammer, whose theatre show, Mancunian Rhapsody, plays next month as part of the Manchester Fringe Festival. Debra, how are you?
I'm all right, how are you?
Yeah, I'm in a good mood. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you. We've got a lot to get through. Very interesting career that you've got here. So, first of all, tell us, Mancunian Rhapsody, it's something that you've written. Tell us about it, explain it, pitch it to us. What is it?
Okay, so a few years ago there was an ITV documentary called Strictly Kosher, and it was about Jews in Manchester. And I watched it and I found it very informative, but mainly quite amusing because it showed an extreme of life. And I'm a Jewish actress from Leeds, and I could really see that there was something, a parody that could come from this. So I started working on a character, Rifki, and she's a religious Jewish woman from Manchester, but she has this guilty pleasure for Freddie Mercury music. Basically, it came to me while I was thinking of all the domestic chores that, you know, trap a lot of women, and I had this image of her with a Hoover, and then the iconic video of I Want to Break Free came into my mind, and I am a bit of a Freddie Mercury fan myself, so I thought, I could do the thing that I like to do, which I've been doing for a while, which is changing lyrics to songs. So I started thinking, instead of I want to break free, I was like, I want a clean house, and I started thinking about that, and then I thought, maybe she can just sing her whole story with the power of Freddie Mercury. And then I thought, well, I can't just do Freddie Mercury, I've got to keep it modern. So I threw some pop music in as well. And then before I knew it, I thought, well, she needs a son. So she has a son who's a rabbi. And then the plot started to come alive.
Yes, spoiler alert. Don't spoil it.
I don't want to spoil it. I need everyone to come and see the show in Manchester.
So yeah, it's very important. And it's part of the Manchester Fringe, isn't it?
It is, yes. I opened in Leeds, gosh, I've lost track of time, last week, Thursday the 18th, and then I've been in London this week performing, and then next week also in London at the Gatehouse in Highgate, and then I open the Manchester Fringe at Salford Arts Theatre on the 1st and 2nd of July.
I've read good things as well. Apparently it's going well, is that right?
It is going well, yeah. Tickets are selling, and then I'm going to the Edinburgh Fringe.
Right.
So, and so far people are really enjoying it. They're finding it hilarious, also quite tragic because it's a tragic comedy. In fact, on the flyer, I thought it was quite a funny play on words to put it's a kind of tragic.
Oh, there you go.
So, I'm a bit of a lover of a pun and things like that. So, and then of course, the story is about her son who is finally getting married to this Brooklyn-born woman who is quite interesting in herself. I also play her. She's called Debra Tammer,
right.
And she's quite interesting. But then things go a little bit wrong.
Right, I see. And that's the bit we don't want to...
I don't want to reveal that.
Don't go beyond that.
Yeah, there's a few twists and turns. So yeah.
So, how did you get into this? How did you become you? Who are you? How did this happen?
Who am I? Well, obviously my parents wanted me to be a barrister, and I said no. I just wanted to act from a very early age. I was just always performing. I think second children quite often like, hello, what about me? Right. So I was performing a lot, and I went to speech and drama classes. In fact, I started to say class instead of class. Ooh. Because my drama teacher in Leeds said, you need to know how to do a proper accent, when you go to London. Mm-hmm. So, you have to figure out how to speak. So I was changing all the time. And I love accents. I've always loved accents.
It's funny you should mention that. We were talking about that just in the break, weren't we? I remember having a pressure on me to change the way that I spoke in order to be able to work in more context.
It's ridiculous.
And we've not moved on as a society, have we? We're still in that place.
I don't know. I think the world of TV is a little bit more accepting of accents. I think the film world still has associations. Having said that, Game of Thrones has changed everything.
Right, yes.
I read something brilliant that the reason they did Northern accents was because Sean Bean said, I'm not doing anything else.
Right.
So they had to follow his lead, so everyone had to do a Northern accent because of him.
Thanks for the bean.
Brilliant. So, I think things are maybe changing. But I left Leeds. I went to Oxford, which was very exciting to go there. But obviously everyone was like, who are you up, from up north? And, I had a great time. I did a lot of acting there. And then I went to drama school and thought, I'm going to be an actress and everything's going to come really easy. Right. And of course, acting is a very competitive game.
Yes.
So it became frustrating. And out of that frustration, I started writing.
Now, you've written quite a few things, but let's maybe look at some of your. What was the first thing that you wrote?
First thing I wrote, well, it wasn't produced. It was a bit serious. It was a play about the Middle East crisis.
Right.
And I showed it to someone. They said, I think you should stay with comedy.
Right.
I was like, yeah, but this could be funny. And they were like, no. So I might go back to that one day. There's probably something in it.
Yes.
I think you can make anything funny, really.
Okay.
But then the first thing I actually wrote and produced was a film called That's For Me. Which is a spoof documentary about a wannabe actress who's quite delusional from a very pushy Jewish family. Where do I get my inspiration from? So I showed the script to a friend and a film director called Claudia Schulte, and she loved it. And we went and made a spoof documentary, and we had funding from the now defunct Film Council, British Film Council.
So how much of your work is autobiographical? How much of it is based in truth?
Well, a lot. I mean, they say write what you know, so I try to do that. I mean, I do research my characters as well. I mean, the overweight, Brooklyn-born, alopecia-ridden feminist, there's a little bit of me in there, but not that much. Rifki is neurotic, and I know a lot of women like that. She's definitely more neurotic and OCD than I am. I wish I was OCD, then I'd have a clean house.
Right.
She's also got some very narrow-minded opinions, which I'm parodying.
Right.
So, but there's people I observe around me, so and you find them in all walks of life, in every community, and I think that most people who come and see the show will recognise that type of person.
So when you reference, I mean, you must reference other characters in your life as well. Have you ever had people sort of going, is that me? What are you doing there?
Somebody did say, is that your mother? Sorry, Mum. And I was like, no, it's not my mum, but there are some influences that will come in. The best thing is to mix up characters.
Right, yes.
And also, I think people who are delusional don't really recognise themselves. So because they would never have that self-awareness to see that they're being satirised or lampooned. So, but people do recognise. One guy said to me when he saw the show, he said he closed his eyes and he could hear his aunt. And he said, have you met her? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So he was convinced I'd done the whole thing based on his aunt that I've never met. So everyone gets something.
This is true. I mean, I'm wondering also, I mean, there's a slight sort of theme developing as I'm looking at your stuff. Delusional seems to be the big word, What is it that you're so fascinated about delusional people for? Why is that?
Because there's a lot of comedy there. I think there's so much humour to be found in people that don't recognise their own flaws.
Yeah.
And when I do stand-up comedy, I'm not one of those comedians that likes to pick on other people, even though I have been known to. I like to pick on myself. So if you can see your own flaws, then everyone relates to you a little bit better. But if you're somebody who's, arrogant and aloof, I just think it's laughable. So
tell us about Pop
Oh,
and Ollie Murs. Explain.
You've really done your research.
What's happening?
So when I was pregnant with the third child, I thought, I need to do something creative. I can't stay at home too long. Right. So I started writing a character, and at the time I was watching X Factor and I was really amazed at the contestants on there. So I started inventing a character from Essex who again thought she was very talented but wasn't. And I decided maybe she was on the X Factor at the same time as Ollie Murs. So she believed that Ollie Murs had got her pregnant.
Right.
And so I wrote this show called Pop, Pop, Pop about a pregnant woman who was a reject from X Factor. And the whole monologue, the whole 45-minute monologue, is her talking about Ollie Murs getting her pregnant and how she wants her revenge because he's become a celebrity and she's now stuck at home.
Did you perform this straight?
I performed this 8 months pregnant.
Did you ever explain it wasn't true? Or?
No, I tried to get in touch with Ollie, but he, for some reason, didn't return my tweets. I did turn it on her, though, because basically, the end of it was that she was stalking him.
Right.
But I took loads of different pop songs and changed all the words, and the last finale song is the classic Salt and Pepper Push It as she gives birth.
Oh, right. Oh, there we go.
So, and then the lights go out as she's singing Push It.
So is that how she would, that's how she
that's how the play ended.
She sang Push It.
Yeah, I mean, there were loads of songs. I mean, you know, I was mocking Britney, all pop, different songs, and changing all the words, and also talking about one of the themes you've picked up on is madness as well, and how, you know, she was on medication for some mental health problem, but she was off it now because she was pregnant, and what that says about somebody. And also in the world of artists, whether they're actors or singers, there is a thin line sometimes between madness and creativity.
Yeah.
So I do find that quite interesting.
The thin line between sanity and insanity
Absolutely.
is the area from which we get most of our...
True, we need to embrace that craziness sometimes, but try and also keep our feet firmly on the ground. It's a tricky one.
All right, I'm enjoying this conversation. Listen, here's what's going to happen.
Bit of philosophy.
We shall be back with Debra in a moment with more conversation about her work and what's happening at the Manchester Fringe. That'll be on the way next here on Late Night Live on That's Manchester. Don't forget, of course, if you want to get in touch with us, you can email us latenightlive@thatsmanchester.co.uk, or you can tweet us at That's Manchester on the Twitter. So that's at That's Manchester. We read all of the contact that we get. We try to reply as much as we can. So latenightlive@thatsmanchester.co.uk. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back to Late Night Live. With me tonight is Debra Tammer, and we're chatting about her show, Mancunian Rhapsody. I'd say your show, there are other people involved, of course.
That's right.
Do you want to, Tom Burgess, do you want to tell us about him?
Tom Burgess is the actor playing Rabbi Michael. He actually had a proper job up until May, working in the music industry, because he's also a musician. And he decided that acting was his true love. So he's given that all up. He's given a proper wage up. And he's doing this show, and he's brilliant at it.
He's dived straight. He's no relation, is he, to Tim Burgess out of the Charlatans?
I don't think so, no. I will ask him.
Right, yeah, also in the music industry. Okay, so he's an actor in the show, and then we have your director as well.
The director, Rachel Krieger. She's an excellent director. In fact, she first saw me in Pop Pop Pop, and we knew we had similar comedy bones. And she is a religious Jewish woman, so she gets it all. And she's a great director, and she's pushing me beyond my boundaries, which I need, because if I was up to me, I said, I don't want to do that, but she's making me.
You mentioned comedy bones. Now, we were just chatting during the break, and I'm remembering a quote from Ricky Gervais that I think he said, I don't know what Jewish comedy is, but I like it. Right? What is Jewish comedy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they get it in America, possibly more so in the UK, but I think British people understand it as well, that it's very self-depreciating, and, you know, we look to ourselves and we just sort of find a little bit of tragedy, and that in itself is that, again, it's, you know, half tragic, half comic. Life is very laughable, and it can go quite dark. I mean, this in itself is quite dark. You know, a lot of people have said, can't you do a happy ending? And I'm like, it's still funny, but there is something. I mean, you're right about Larry David and Woody Allen, where, you know, there is this, oh no, but you find it so funny, like you know it's going to happen. And I think it's actually a brilliant survival technique as well, because I think Jewish people with a sense of humour, they're the first to laugh at themselves. And even in times of great distress, they'll find a joke. And it's really healthy, I think. So not always look at everything. You know, they like to see the positive. That's what it really comes down to. And in fact, one of the themes in my show is a Hebrew stroke Yiddish saying, which is Gam zu Litova, which means this too is for the best. And that no matter what, you see the light at the end of the tunnel. Right. And I think that's quite refreshing.
Yeah, like I say, I've just never quite cracked what Jewish comedy would be. Is it? I mean, could a non-Jewish person perform Jewish comedy?
Yeah,
would that
sure.
make sense?
As long as they've got, you know,
self-depreciation.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it helps if you've got comic timing. Not everybody has comic timing.
No.
But I think it's a case of, you know what it is? It's giving permission to laugh. So I'm getting up on stage and I'm saying, don't worry, you can laugh. Go for it. Yes. So I think a lot of people get a bit uncomfortable if I'm making some joke that they may think, oh, that's a bit anti-Semitic. I'm like, don't worry about it, it's fine, I can do it. Which I think sometimes falls into the category of, I can insult my mother, but you can't, you know, like with everyone. But having said that, if you do it with warmth and joy, it's okay. So it's all about the intention that's behind the joke.
Yeah.
Because sometimes comedians can sort of go over that line where the intention has gone a bit racist. But if you keep it warm and funny is funny.
Because it's a strange thing. I mean, I know plenty of people who are Jewish. I've just never quite felt like I understood that word, perhaps.
Okay.
And so if I was to turn up and see Mancunian Rhapsody, would you take me by the hand and lead me through the garden, or are there going to be references maybe I don't get?
Well, funnily enough, the associate director of West Yorkshire Playhouse came to see, he's called Mark Rosenblatt, he came to see the show in Leeds, and he said, I think you held the hand of the non-Jew very well.
Right.
And I said, oh, brilliant, that's a great compliment, because it's done in a documentary style, so I am explaining. For example, I explain Shabbat, which is the day of rest, which is observed on Saturday. I explain it very well because there's a lot of rituals and laws around that day. It's meant to be a day of peace, but also there's certain things you can't do. So that's explained in the show, and it's done with humour. And I think everyone will get it, and there are phrases that you will know anyway, like oy vey, you don't need that explaining to you. We do have a glossary of terms just in case.
Oh, good.
But I do explain things quite well.
Okay. And then, of course, singing a lot of music as well.
Yeah.
Am I right? Is that where you're coming from? I know you're a voiceover artist as well.
I am, yeah.
How important is the singing side of what you're doing?
It's quite ironic, because when I applied to drama school, I looked at the application forms and it said, you must prepare 2 songs. I'm like, why? You know, because I was doing classical acting at LAMDA. I thought, why do I need to sing? That's for the singers. I'm not a singer. So anyway, I got through the audition. That's how I sort of saw the whole experience. And then I just always found musicals quite hilarious. Even though I enjoy them, I sort of thought as a child, why are people now bursting into song in the middle of talking to each other?
Yes.
It's sort of, you know how you have a suspension of disbelief when you go see a show, right? I'm accepting this, they're on the stage, but I'm accepting it. I couldn't accept that somebody was bursting into song. I thought, what's going on? I think I turned to my mum and said, Mummy, what's happening? She goes, we're in a musical. And so I thought, maybe I could actually parody musicals as well. So I'm sort of doing that. And by changing the words to familiar songs, people really enjoy that. I mean, I actually take a Gary Barlow song. And that's one of people's favourites.
Right.
I take A Million Love Songs and I've changed the words completely.
A Million Love Songs is a good little tune. So you don't have singing days in your house? I mean, we used to do that, where you had to sing everything. You ever done that in your house?
Oh, that is great. I might have to copy that game.
Yes, it's quite good. Morning, everybody.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, it's good.
And in fact, I read the other day that if kids sing their revision notes to themselves, they're more likely to go in the brain.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that as well.
So helpful.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, we're doing a bit of public service for everyone. I like that.
If you really can't get those notes in, just sing some physics.
So, Edinburgh Fringe.
Yes.
A lot of people see that in the comedy circuit, and we've had people on this show saying that costs a lot of money, and it's something that can be a little soul-destroying for some people. What are your survival techniques, and what are your thoughts on that? Well,
like Rifki says in the show, I'm a very positive person. So, even though I have invested money, or my husband has invested money, I'm hoping it will, I'll make some of it back. And hopefully, I mean, the main thing about Edinburgh, rather than thinking about the money aspect, is that it is a platform for talent. So it's one of the biggest international festival of arts in the world. It is the one. So if I can use it to attract people from the industry who want to maybe commission my play, or agents, producers, who knows, then I see it more as a stepping stone to something else. So
it's interesting, isn't it, how that's the reputation that's been acquired by the Edinburgh Fringe, but then say the Manchester Fringe. It's harder to platform in quite the same way, networking-wise. Do you think?
I think that's true. I mean, Manchester Fringe is obviously also an amazing opportunity, and they have some really great shows on.
Oh yeah.
And I really hope I get the chance to see lots of their shows. And last year I did something called the Camden Fringe. However, Edinburgh's just has that history, and people do flock to it. So, but then again, it's very competitive, and I'm sure there's lots of people who are on at the same time as me, and they might want to go to the Gilded Balloon or wherever to see their show, but they need to come and see mine.
Do you know what? I used to go to the Edinburgh Fringe on a regular basis. I've not been for a couple of years now, but it's wonderful. Well, I shall try, and I shall come over and say hello if I do. But one of the other things that I'm thinking as well, how do you manage the kind of the work-life balance? Because it seems like you've got a lot of work on your plate. You're a very busy person.
Yes.
How do you manage that with your
well, I
family?
think think sleeping less is a key.
Yes.
So I do love sleep, but I'm sleeping much less. So, for example, last night the show finished at 11. By the time I'd sort of taken all my stuff out of the theatre, home at midnight. I'm on a bit of a buzz from the show, so I'm not in bed till 1. And then my 3-year-old comes over at 6. I'm like, But I think when you love something, when you really love what you're doing, then nothing else matters. If you're not loving what you're doing, then yeah, you might struggle. But I really love what I'm doing. I also have the opportunity to teach. I teach kids drama, so I'm teaching in my kids' school at the moment, actually. So that's really great. I love that, and I try and devise shows for children. So I have a few strings to my bow, which is very important as an actor. And yeah, just,
Yeah, I'm getting the impression that you're non-stop busy, and that's, like I say, I wonder how you manage to juggle that.
I have friends helping me. I've got a friend who helps me, and I've got my family who are really supportive. So, everybody chips in, and if I can't always pick the kids up from school, I'm like calling my mother-in-law and begging her. So, it helps if you have family members helping. So, and my parents are extremely helpful too, so I have to thank them. Good.
And then in the future, you've got projects up your sleeve, you've got things you're working on. Tell us a little bit about some of those things.
So I mentioned earlier the director Claudia Schulte, who is doing very well herself independently because she's directing opera in Russia, bizarrely. But she and I started writing a sitcom, and we're really hoping that will get taken up by a producer. So
a sitcom?
Yeah.
That's supposed to be the impossible task.
I know.
Everyone says it's impossible to write a sitcom. How have you managed to do that?
Well, we've been thinking about it for a long time, and amazingly we were told to write less because we wrote everything, and then we were told by this producer, just write a treatment and then we'll take it to the TV companies and just give them a teaser. So it's just finding interesting characters, and I look around me all the time. You don't have to look far to find very entertaining people.
It's the task that has sent a few people around the bend, that one, writing sitcoms, isn't it?
I know, it is. You've got to get it right. But I think a lot of it is to do with simplicity and also finding a small location. So you just find one place. I don't want to I could tell you a bit more about it. It's set in a dry cleaners.
Oh, right, there we go.
But I don't want to reveal too much.
You don't want to, it's no spoiler.
Well, I don't know.
Are you worried someone's going to steal the idea?
Yeah, I am actually.
It's that kind of sitcom.
I am worried.
They are going into a dry cleaners, but it's a time travel device that takes them to the future.
Possibly.
That's the twist, is it?
Thank you.
Is that what it was?
I didn't have my ending sorted. Thank you so much. I'll put your name at the end of the credits.
Great stuff. So, do you continue to work as a stand-up, right? Is that right?
Yes and no. I did it for about a year. I did some a few weeks ago, actually, so I don't know why I'm saying I know. But I prefer acting.
Right.
I feel safer.
Because that was where I was going to go. I was going to ask you.
Okay. So even though I will do it, and probably when I'm in Edinburgh, I'll get up and do some, because I do like telling jokes. If they don't laugh, it is quite soul-destroying.
Yes, isn't it? I've had that. I tried stand-up. Turns out that bit where you stop talking, they don't just naturally laugh.
No.
You've got to have said something funny, haven't you? Nightmare, that. I hadn't planned for it.
It's hard.
Yeah, I've got to tell jokes and everything.
Yeah. So, but I think as long as I've got my set, I'm okay. But a lot of it is dependent on the audience. In the early days, I was walking into pubs in the middle of nowhere with 4 really drunk men, and they're not interested in me telling them jokes, if you get my gist. So I thought, what am I doing?
Right. And you started singing. That's where we went.
Exactly.
Well, do you know what? I've really enjoyed chatting to you, Deborah. It's been really
Likewise.
fun. Thank you for coming along.
Thank you so much.
And hopefully we'll see you again. You're watching Late Night Live here on That's Manchester, and we'll be back after this.